I'm not sure who was harder to train, me or Karen. I was more hesitant. She was more gung ho. So I guess it depends on how you like to train people. I am up here again in place of Amy Peele, who is on your program as the next speaker. Sadly, I am not Amy Peele, which is a real shame because you would have loved to have met her and you would have loved to hear her speak, as she is an amazingly accomplished speaker and a delightful person and a good friend to Charles. Unfortunately, she's suffering from a hopefully non-serious health issue that nonetheless prevents her from flying. I offered to send an Uber, but her Novato, California home is 2,500 miles away, and she felt like it would be better to stay there with her husband, Mark Schatz. She asked me to share her thoughts with you in her place. I will do my best, Amy. She named at Charles's memorial a true Southern gentleman. I met Charles in 1978 at a transplant meeting in Columbus, Ohio. A tall, lanky man, very respectful, kind, and dressed in a starched shirt, tie, sports jacket, and slacks. It was clear he took pride in his appearance. He was the first Southern gentleman I ever met. We shared a love for all that was transplant and organ donation and became fast friends. What a character he was. We attended many, many transplant meetings and scientific conferences and would discuss all the latest discoveries in our field. Cyclosporin A was a huge breakthrough. At the end of each evening, we would all head up to our rooms and Charles would walk me to my room. Not because we were dating, but because he wanted to make sure I got to my room safely. Charles was a man of the highest integrity, passionate about organ donation and transplantation. One of my favorite memories was when he was a procurement coordinator at Emory and he had a brain-dead infant. The family agreed to donation, and there was an infant in need at Loma Linda in California. For anyone who's done donor management in the ICU, you know how fragile the donor is and how complicated the process is in a stable setting. Anything can go wrong, and usually does, and you had to be on your toes. Charles successfully transferred that infant donor on a jet, and the heart was successfully transplanted into that infant. She was known as Baby Eve, and she is now married and has grown kids of her own. If you could have watched Charles, as I did, celebrate her life with the utmost pride at a Rose Bowl Gift of Life parade event, you would have thought that he was her father, beaming with joy and delight. Charles became an important part of my life, meeting most of my family over the years. He was at our wedding and caught the garter in 1987. He wasn't lucky in love until he met his Dana. He was giddy like a teenager, telling me all about her, how he met her, how he couldn't wait for me to meet her. I knew he had finally found his soulmate. I couldn't have been happier for him. Seeing them together brought all those who witnessed their connection true joy. Over the years, he became close to our two children. He was Uncle Charles to them. Charles was the photographer at my niece's wedding that we had at our home. He had such a focused and intuitive eye, capturing the most subtle moments on camera. Anyone who followed Charles on Facebook could testify about his beautiful photos of nature and all the animals he loved. He would patiently watch our cats, Giorgio, Artemis, and Luna, until he got his shot, and he always got it. When we welcomed our first dog, Rusty, into our lives, Charles was front and center, agreeing to come watch Rusty Dog, as he fondly referred to him when we went on vacation. He took Rusty out to Point Reyes National Shoreline, and the two would wander together. Charles coached us on being careful not to put our luggage out too early, as it would upset Rusty. These sweet, small sensitivities were what made him such a kind, gentle soul. He enjoyed the clean, fresh air we are fortunate to have in Northern California and declared our home and backyard the Shot Spa, using my husband Mark's last name. I bought a space heater for the backyard just for Charles so he could enjoy the outdoors even when it got chilly. God knows he didn't have much meat on his bones. Charles would begin his visits to our home with a trip to our local farmer's market where he would buy food for a crowd, but it was just him. He was so excited and grateful for the local bounty and would prepare delicious-looking meals for himself and post pictures of them. I would always kid him about how slow he ate and about how little he actually ate. One time I was serving dinner and I served his on a small saucer and told him not to be a pig. He just laughed. Charles was a soul brother. He saw things in me that no one else did. I knew I could trust him with anything. We grew up together through our transplant careers, which spanned almost 40 years. He was always actively involved in creating and promoting the role of a procurement coordinator, comfortable with doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. Many of us who weren't as smart as him and held official offices in NATCO and UNOS. I always sought his advice, and it was given with thoughtfulness and clarity. I know he always kept the patients on the wait list top of mind as he gracefully interacted with potential donor families. When the media and government were investigating our organ donation and transplant programs, Charles was able to share honestly his concerns and back them up with his experiences. He served on federal committees and high-level professional oversight boards. Several colleagues ultimately unfriended him because he was committed to the best possible procurement system, sometimes shining an unflattering light on it. His laser focus was always on those waiting for life-saving transplant. Charles will always be in my heart, and I miss him, as I'm sure many of you do. Always a Southern gentleman to the end. What a gift he was to our world. I'm honored to call him my brother from another mother, and for all the joy and beauty he brought to my life. Charles, I sure hope you're eating up there and enjoying all the beauty. Send some photos if you have a minute. Love, your friend, Amy. And now I would like to invite Miss Keely Crew to the lectern.